It all started with us wondering where Peter had run off to. Then, as we entered the forest, we crossed the tree line and something magical happened. Kalla could hear the whispers through the trees. As she became one with nature, she began to map out the path ahead of us. The beautiful tree fairies and forest sprites were informing us that we were now in the land of Everbithia. The path ahead would be dangerous and rocky, but the right princess could get us to the grand gazing tower. First, we would have to duck and dive and dig and forage for steps to make a bridge to cross the dangerous rapids. And once we would make it across the dangerous rapids, we would have to wade through the electric moat filled with all of the craziest sea creatures and the cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. But obviously, we made it across under the guidance and perseverance of the amazing Kalla. As she began to scale the sharp and jagged rocks, trying to climb, all of a sudden the fairies magically lifted her up and she stood atop the village for all to see as they claimed her to be their Princess Kalla. Today we went on a hike where my bear continued to show me the fairy paradise that is Everbithia. You can see her wings begin to itch here as we grow closer, and once she reaches the edge of the cliff, she immediately hears the call of her people. There are no humans that have ever been able to enter this land, but somehow the fairy princess has created the magic that we need to get through. We press onward as she beckons me to come closer and shows me the underground fairy tunnels that led to the freedom of her people. Now we have to pass the entrance of truth as we are attacked relentlessly by the gnomes. Therefore, I cannot tell a lie. Once they divulge the secrets of momkind, they allow us to pass. Our journey continues as we enter the Forbidden Gardens. Kalla shows me the land of her people and where they once bloomed for generations, and fairy queens laid up to 50,000 eggs at once. And now, all that's left are the leaves of the criminals that were imprisoned here in the jails. Each one of these leaves was a fairy that was an anarchist and went against their people. Therefore, they were imprisoned and turned into leaves, and that's all that's left. However, we found one fairy princess remaining. Amongst all the leaves and all the formerly imprisoned fairies in the shells of what they once were, we have a fairy princess to lead the people as she runs to crown Everbithia and vows that it will once again be brimming with fairies of the wild. Join us as we once again set out for the land known as Everbithia. After a visit from some of the sprites that originally hail from this land, we were instructed that the fairies were in dire need, and it was crucial that Princess Kalla appear in Everbithia. Again, she had to climb the treacherous mountains and sail through the choppiest seas and the stormiest waters that you could ever imagine. Thank goodness that the sun shines so brightly everywhere that she goes so that the fairies are always able to find her. It wasn't easy to navigate this rocky terrain, and we had already been warned of what was ahead. However, we pushed on, and we knew that we would come out victorious. It was very challenging once we came upon the lair of Serpentante, but Kalla paraded through and marched on as we foraged through the bush and pushed forward once again. She made way and tried to break every branch that we came across to lay down in her path and secure the materials that we would need to exit here. She had to climb atop the forest to see where we would build our extraction device. Then we returned to the safety of the shrouds to practice the distraction dance that we would need once we came across the evil gargoyles. We only spotted one of these rare creatures that we had been cautioned about. And of course we decided to capture it and bring it home to guard our palace instead. As I was capturing their gargoyle, they captured my princess. I had to fight through the branches and try to free her from this prison that they had created, and she was obviously so relieved. Once we were successful, we made our way across the choppy seas and ragged waters once again. As we began to navigate our way out of Everbithia and tried to make sure that our own palace was not under attack, we heard a call and a warning. Kalla began to run. Oh no, we have to secure the gargoyle. He's going to escape. Oh, help. At the last moment, we managed to secure the gargoyle thanks to Princess Kalla, of course, and returned him quickly to his post where, as you can see, he immediately went on guard. There wasn't much time before Peter showed up with a very important message. The forest was on high alert and immediately needed Princess Kalla to their rescue. To which, of course, she soared into the woods with open arms and an open heart to spread love, kindness, and positivity as always. Bringing with her the power of her protective sunshine, she scaled the highest mountains, climbed the most dangerous trees. We were even captured at one point and put in a prison in the sky, but of course, Princess Kalla was able to free us from that as well. As we made our way along the dangerous and deadly cliffside, we heard the call of the fairies and sprites whispering through the woods, beckoning for help. We searched and Kalla spotted them as we tried to navigate safely to the next spot where we would be able to hear them. Through the rolling logs and the jagged rocks, we came to the creek and learned that we had arrived in the midst of a war between the trolls and the fairies. The fairies and sprites were under attack as the trolls were sending their gnomes and everyone they could. They were begging for help, and the only one that could save them was Princess Kalla. That would only be if we survived the treacherous terrain. We stopped to ponder at the pond of pondering, and that's when we noticed that the frog prince took notice of Princess Kalla's arrival. Coming up to greet her, she was so stunned into shocked silence, she didn't know what to say. We knew we had to continue our journey, and one day the Frog Prince would return when Princess Kalla took her seat on the throne. For now, we must travel through the jungle to help the fairies and sprites and save them from the deadly trolls and gnomes that are decimating their population. For this, we would need, yes, that's right, another gargoyle. We must keep our plans secret from the enemy, but surely capturing a gargoyle will absolutely help. Once the second gargoyle was secured, we finished along the trail until we finally, freed from the whispers of the woods, were able to jump out of the forest exclaiming happily, "I made it!" again we heard the call from Everbithia. They required Princess Kalla's immediate presence. And a princess has duties to fulfill. So naturally, she requested the queen to venture with her, and off into the woods we went. We were off to search for the Frog Prince. Surely he would have some information regarding who was working for the trolls and taking all the fairies and sprites. Princess Kalla had some secret weapons up her sleeve they did not know about, the power of sunshine that she was packing, or her hunting skills, not to mention how good she was when it came to capturing fugitives. There was yet to be a soldier from any army that could actually evade this princess. So as we sought out today for the Frog Prince, the princess tried everything she could think of and could not find him anywhere. Determined to persevere, we beat our way through the brush until, that is, we may or may not have made a wrong turn and had to backtrace our steps. However, thanks to Kalla's wonderful skills in stealth and her ability to camouflage so naturally, we had a few more tricks up our sleeve. Mystified that we couldn't find him anywhere, we spotted the Nemos all of a sudden. We knew we wouldn't be able to capture them, as these little guys are slippery and quick. However, no matter how soggy she was, the princess would not let this stop her from finding a vantage point to observe the Nemos. Oh no, it's a human mask. There must be spies among us. Not knowing who was working for the evil and dastardly trolls and not being able to catch these Nemos, we persevered through their traps of rolling logs and swinging vines. Even yet once more, the princess tried her tactics of luring and bait. No matter our stealth and our skill, we could not seem to find them. However, we were not done looking. So we would scale the highest mountain. And that's when she discovered a never-before-seen part of Everbithia. But then she came to me for help as we heard a mysterious whisper in the pipeline. Stay tuned to find out. Deep in the forest of Everbithia, the princess had just been sucked into the mysterious pipeline. I frantically searched everywhere I could and even consulted the pond of pondering, begging the Frog Prince for help. Then I heard a rustle. As I searched, finally she emerged from the pond of pondering. But we weren't out of the woods yet. We weren't even out of the pond yet. As the princess worked furtively to escape the Nemos, we were then under attack by a new enemy. Cloaked with the power of invisibility, they flew around us as Kalla desperately clung to the logs for safety. As she fought and thrashed and kicked, she finally escaped their treacherous clutches, although they had left their mark. And that was when we were told that the pond of pondering had these magical healing properties that would immediately repair the attacks of the Tamiquos. The Tamiquos were working for the trolls as well and had been sent to capture the princess and bring her back to the dungeon. However, they underestimated Princess Kalla. Not only was the princess packing the power of sunshine, but we have the fairies and sprites on our side. As they tried desperately to scare off the Tamiquos, we were finally freed from their evil clutches as we pervaded the land and tried to hear, where do we go next? Wandering the realm of Everbithia for days on end, we desperately needed the Frog Prince's help. We could not find him anywhere. All we could hear were the calls of his people. And then he sent one very special little sprite that could speak only to Princess Kalla. And that is who told us of the tale of the long-lost prince of Everbithia. And as Kalla continued to translate what the sprite was telling her, she took me back to the pond of pondering and showed me how she was able to safely escape from the troll's prison and be freed through the healing waters. Our sprite friend continued to tell Kalla just how grateful Everbithia was to see their princess once again. Having lived in fear and hopelessness for ages until her return, they knew that only Princess Kalla could save their land by returning the prince to his rightful throne. Stay tuned for the next episode of Everbithia. Beckoning her people at the gates of Everbithia, the princess called to all the fae. While we couldn't see them just yet, we heard them rustling in the woods, and then, of course, as Kalla turned, she saw Peter standing at the tree line with a message. He urged us to hurry and follow, as they needed our help urgently. Only this time Kalla knew what the secret mission was, and she could not wait to show me. As it turned out, you needed to be 5 foot or over to ride this secret mission, but that's why she brought me. So naturally, once she had tricked me, I was able to help her procure these beautiful fae eggs. Although they were clearly enchanted, they were heavily armored with spikes. Lucky for Kalla, she brought a queen that knew how to crack the armor. And fortunately for us, the fae and the sprites had already whispered the secrets naturally in their native tongue, so no one but the princess would understand them, providing each step that she would need to hatch the fairylings. Off she ran to find the ceremonial pieces that would begin the process. We set out deep into the forest of Everbithia to search for each of the ceremonial pieces. Without each of these enchanted items, the fairylings could not hatch. However, we could begin to help them. First, I would have to transfer them to Princess Kalla, as she possessed the magic to make sure that they would safely arrive to the Pond of Pondering. However, they would have to travel much the same way that she traveled from the troll's prison, through the river. As she explained the process to me, we gathered all the fairylings that we had to approach the river so that we could send them on their way. But there was one key item missing, and the fae insisted that Kalla would have to travel to a far off and distant land to find this. We could keep them safe for now, and we could put them in the river to set them on their journey, ready to arrive in the Pond of Pondering, to hatch and come live freely amongst their people. However, they would remain fledglings until Kalla returned with the sacred palm. So we freed them in the river twigs as we wished our fairylings the best of luck and promised that we would return to see them hatch. Kalla heard more whispers from the Pond of Pondering. The Frog Prince had sent word that these would be the fairylings that would help her return the long-lost prince to Everbithia. And I am so very sorry, friends, but unfortunately, due to copyright issues, the original storyline and audio for episode 8 is only available on TikTok at team.maui. We do want to let you know that this was actually a very special episode with a send-off fit for a queen as our princess prepared to travel to a kingdom far, far away. We hope you guys check it out. It was at long last, Princess Kalla returned to the kingdom of Everbithia. following her amazing adventure to a magical kingdom far, far away. She returned excited as ever to see, had the Frog Prince returned to us yet, and had the fairylings hatched. She set off to seek out the Frog Prince. Unfortunately, he was nowhere to be found. If anyone could find him, goodness knows it was Princess Kalla. Sadly, we had to abandon our search and instead seek out the fae eggs that we had set upon the river, wondering where they would have docked once we set them out to embark on their adventures at sea. Kalla urged me along the path to show me exactly where there was evidence that the fairylings had hatched. We heard the whispers of the trolls and the gnomes along the tree lines as we journeyed down our path. But Kalla pressed on and promised she had seen this beautiful, magical event firsthand, still covered with dew and fairy dust. We discovered the vessel that held the fairylings upon the banks. Kalla examined it closely and could see that the fae had hatched. All of a sudden, where you could not see but only hear, she came out of nowhere. Had it not been for Princess Kalla's training in magical creatures, we would have never spotted her. However, it was Princess Kalla she was looking for as she relayed her secret, telling us to stand guard over the troll's dungeon. She would fly upon the forest and keep watch. We sought the magical stem as Kalla procured the rocks that would keep the trolls locked within the dungeon below. Now we only had to figure out which one was spelled and which one was not. But wait, Kalla, being the princess of Everbithia, could simply just cast a spell on the largest rock of all, and the trolls would be secure.
When signaled from the fairies, we set out to check on Everbithia and make sure that the trolls and gnomes had not invaded the kingdom. We would continue our search for the Frog Prince and make sure he had not been captured, as Kalla paved the way for the queen, clearing the cobwebs with her mouth. But as she promised the people of Everbithia that she would bring reinforcements and do anything within her power to reunify their kingdom, to help the fairies and the sprites feel safe once again. We traveled through the rapid river, the treacherous terrain, navigating some of the most dangerous obstacles, all the while keeping our eyes out for the Frog Prince. As Kalla continued to communicate to me what the fairies and sprites were saying, we began to learn more about the long-lost prince of Everbithia and how it had gotten to be in such devastating condition. When we arrived once again at the trolls and the gnomes' most highly guarded secret, their personal dungeon, Kalla briefly explained to me why we should not fear, and then she disappeared. I swore I could hear the rumbles underground as the trolls' dungeon digested her, or the trolls in the dungeon digested her. Oh no, I don't know which, but thankfully then she just appeared. It turns out they had not captured her this time, but rather she was able to infiltrate their underground systems. Although unfortunately she had emerged practically in a different country, and now we had a new task at hand: finding a path for the princess. So she set off to discover how she would be able to return so she could fill me in on all that she had learned about how the trolls destroyed this land and where the once long lost prince had went. You can see how excited she was to share the tale of the 24-karat golden-haired little boy. She hurried me along. We had to work fast if we were going to secure the kingdom. We set out on our voyage to seek the assistance of the Frog Prince once again, and then emerged from Everbithia when we were unable to locate him. Perhaps we can come up with a plan on how to proceed. We must reunite the prince with his kingdom. Stay tuned to see what happens next.